All right, hello everyone out there, particularly Florida State Seminole boosters and ticket holders, and we need each and every one of you. The time is not over with. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet, to get your tickets in for the 2020 football season, but especially thanks to these guys that are joining us right now. And if you've been a Florida State fan for any time at all, you know who these guys are. Not only were they great players, but they're now great coaches and currently on the football staff, and so happy to have Ron Dugans back and to have Odell Haggins here forever. But Odell, welcome. Ron, welcome. We're going to talk a little Florida State football of the past, Florida State football of the future and the present with these guys. And it's all brought to you by the FSU Bookstore, which is where you can get all your Seminole merchandise at shopfsu.com. So everybody's at home thinking about Florida State, thinking about the season starting, and you want to get some Seminole gear, see what that new sideline gear is going to be for the season. So go to shopfsu.com and thank them for their sponsorship of this week's Football Fix. And guys, welcome.
How you doing, Rob? Glad to be here, brother.
Thanks for having us, Rob.
Hey, it's great to have you both. And I'm so proud that I've been here. I don't know if proud to been here long enough is the right way to put it, but here when you were players, of course, particularly Odell, and if I was here for that, and actually I was going to be here for Coach Dugans as well, but for those really young fans or those fans that haven't kept up with it as well as you could, one of the all-time great defensive linemen in the history of college football, Odell Haggins, of course, who played nose guard, came in as a linebacker. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, Tallahassee's own Ron Dugans, who was one of the all-time great wide receivers and played on the 99 national championship team, managed to torch the Hokies for a couple of touchdowns, if I remember right, in that national championship game. But we'll get to you both in just a minute. We'll go kind of with seniority first, even though you're working on that, Ron, with that gray beard. But Odell, you got him beat. So we'll go to Odell first. I'll remind everyone, 85 to 89 he played here. Won 4 bowl games during that time. He played for the San Francisco 49ers in 1990 and then won a Super Bowl with the Bills in 1991. I don't know if you won that Super Bowl or not, but you'll tell me, I'm sure.
We lost.
I was afraid of that after I said it. Then you came back to 94 to Florida State, and of course you're in the Athletics Hall of Fame for your work as a player. You can't go in twice, but we put you in as a coach as well. Served as interim coach, which is famously on your resume, and we'll get to what that experience was like in a moment. But first, take you way back to Bartow, Florida, and you're getting recruited by Bobby Bowden and Florida State University. I'll remind everybody that at the time, Florida had beaten us like 5 or 6 straight years. They were sort of the hot team in the state at that time. Miami really hadn't done too much. Like I said, won 1 national championship. But anyway, you're sitting at home in Bartow. Coach Bobby Bowden comes in to see you. What convinces you to come to Florida State?
Well, first thing, Coach Bowden, they recruited. Bob Harbison was my main recruiter. And little did I know, Coach Bowden and my head coach played together. My head coach was the center, and Coach Bowden was the quarterback. So therefore, he always used to mention something about Florida State University. And I started talking about doing my research, and I, started looking at the Bobby Bowden show when I was younger, and I always liked Florida State. And the recruitment went. My mom, once Coach Bowden came to the house and met my mother and talked to her and stuff, she wanted me to get up and go back to Tallahassee with him then. But, the recruitment back, I didn't understand what a football camp was because I'm from Bartow. The only thing I knew to do is work. And the recruitment, I was kind of naive to the point, all the coaches coming in from Florida, Georgia, places. And like I say, all the head coaches come in there, and Coach Bowden came in there, it was over. Done deal.
All right, so you come to Florida State. We'll get to that in just a second. How about while we're on Coach Bowden, let's talk about how that what a unique thing. And I know you guys appreciate this, but how unique to have played for a legend and then coached with a legend and to know him in 2 different environments. How was it different than once you got to know him as you working for Coach Bowden rather than playing for Coach Bowden?
Well, as a player, you didn't understand the reason why he would say stuff until you got older. Now, and as a coach, you understood everything he said and the effect that you have on kids' lives. And coaching with him, I learned so much about learning how to mentor these kids. And that's one of the strongest things in college football that I got from Coach Bowden, mentoring kids. He always tell me, get their hearts. Make sure they can trust you. They'll go to school then. They'll play for you hard. And they'll always remember you in more than just being a coach. They'll remember you as a father figure. And that's something, coaching with him, I learned a lot how to deal with people in different aspects. But Coach Bowden, he has so many qualities. He always told me, so Odell, don't try to be like me. Just take something small and learn from him. One thing I learned from him is like planting seeds in young men. And you plant that seed, the apple tree will grow and them produce so many apples and things like that. And it'll go out and start planting other seeds in other people's lives. That's the thing I learned from Coach Bowden, and always being a giver. And as a coach, it made me a better coach. Made me get outside my box.
Interesting. And having talked to Coach Norvell, I guess 6 times previous, one of the things we asked him was why coaching? Why do you get in coaching? And you guys will answer that too. But one of the things he said was to change lives, to give people opportunities, to that's where he gets his enjoyment, is to take a kid and have him grow. And he's kind of particular about recruiting. He's not recruiting according to the magazines. He's not recruiting according to the media or even the internet and fans pressures. But he really is kind of keyed in of similarity, it sounds like, between Coach Bowden and Coach Norvell, in that the heart and the motivation of a recruit has a lot to do with it.
Yes, it does. And that goes back to, Coach Norvell recruiting kids. And now I'm learning how he look at kids and things like that, which is great because he does have some similarity to Coach Bowden. He's not looking at your talent first. He's looking at your character. The talent going to take you there. After that, he's going to evaluate your character. See, if you're the type of guy that belongs at Florida State University. And I'm not saying we're being standoffish, but what he's saying, he wants character first, then athletic ability. Because I've seen a lot of great teams with a lot of great athletic ability didn't have the character, didn't win the games they supposed to win. If you get character and guys with athletic ability, that's when you start winning championships.
You answered one of my questions just there with what Coach Norvell is like to work with. Let's roll it back to your playing days and your coaching days. Give me your favorite game you played in as a player, for whatever reason, and the reason. Whatever game sticks out most in your mind when you think about your FSU career. And then as a coach at FSU, what game sticks out the most in your mind as a coach?
One of the favorite games I ever played in, one of the many, when we played University of Miami here in 1989, they ranked #1 in the nation. We lost our first 2 games. We came in the season ranked 4th in the nation. We lost our first 2 games, and they played in Dope. That was a hard-fought game. It was amazing. It was a hard-hitting, hard-fought game. Went down to the wire. Dex, the first player of the game, went 30, 31, 37 yards for a touchdown. In that game, it was so loud. I've never heard a stadium that like today. We only had 61,000 people. Feels like the stand, they stood up the whole time doing the war chant. And in that game, I remember that game as a player. It's always going to stand out of my mind. And the game that coached in 1998 when Chris Winkie got hurt, if I'm not mistaken, and people wrote our season off. We were trying to get back to another national championship. And we had to beat Florida to go there. So what happened, went in there and Coach Andrews told us, hey, guys, play your best. Do the best you could. And that game we held, I think, Florida to, they was 0 for 21 on 3rd down conversion. And we played a defense. Coach Andrew, we designed a defense in 1998 that it was called dime. And Spurrier couldn't figure it out. And so that game, they couldn't even run against 1 defensive lineman, 2, we had 3 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 6 defensive backs in the game. They couldn't run the ball in our pro. So I always remember that game. That game took us to the national championship game. It was a hard-fought game. Peter Ward and Dude, they made great plays in that game, and it was a defensive battle, both teams. I always remember that game.
And that's interesting you bring that up, because two of the most unsung victories in Florida State history over Florida in particular, but in general really, are that ball game and then the game when we beat Florida and then got rematched with them again in the national championship game in the Sugar Bowl. When we beat Florida in those two games, we sort of got cheated out of tremendous wins by the games that followed it, and people forget those wins. But that Miami game was the best environment I'd ever been in my 33 years at Florida State. And I remember the ESPN crew at the time, who was Chris Fowler and those guys were there as well, and the whole stadium was shaking. And after the game, they were just, the media was kind of thanking each other for just having been there. It was that kind of game. Before you go, and you'll have to stay and listen to Dugans too, because I'm going to wrap something up at the end with you both, but what are you most excited about for this upcoming season, Coach Haggins?
Well, one thing I can tell you this, and Rob, I've been blessed to be here for a long time, coaching national championship, win national championship, seeing kids graduate, going to NFL. And the thing I'm really excited about, the family atmosphere Coach Mike Norvell is building. To me, that's important, because that's what Florida State was built on. True family. You hear a lot of people out there talking about family, but no, Coach Mike, he's building that here. He's sincere. I'm really excited about that. Once you build a family, everything else is going to take off. The football, everything is taking, the fan base, everything is going to take off. I'm real excited about that, bringing that Florida State family back together.
Well, hang with us. We're excited that you took the time to be with us, and I know our boosters and our fans mean so much to you. You really fed off of them as a player. You were one of the people forget. You always jumped up and gave that sign when you had a quarterback sack and all that. So there's a little showboat in you, even though you try and beat it out of your players now. But I remember. But anyway, moving down to Coach Dugans there, a Tallahassee native, of course. He played at Florida State from '95 to '99. Ended his season with the national championship in '99, of course, drafted by the Bengals. And he's coached at FSU as a graduate assistant and with the Bengals at Georgia Southern, Louisville, South Florida, and the University of Miami, of all places. God, we were glad to pull you out of there. But anyway, you got a whole lot of experience in your belt. We'll get to that in just a moment, but I'll ask you what it was like to play for Coach Bowden in Florida State.
First of all, Rob, I'd like to say thanks for having me. And also, like, just kind of going back to Odell, man, I used to say he's one of the luckiest guys in the world, man. Got a chance to play at Florida State. Got a chance to coach, at Florida State. Been here, for a long time. So he got a chance to play for Coach Bowden and then coach with Coach Bowden. I always thought, like, wow, like nobody has it better than him. Then I got a chance to do it. It was like, wow, let's go home. Be a GA and coach with Coach Bowden, after I played for him, and now I'll get a chance to, come back home, and be a full-time assistant. So, it's been, a blessing, to be back, Rob, and getting a chance to coach and play for Coach Bowden. Like Odell said, I mean, Coach, as a player, you really didn't understand, like, some of the things that Coach was saying. I remember early on he told me, pray for a lighter load, pray for a stronger back. And at the time I was a younger player, a freshman coming in. I didn't quite understand until I started listening to Clint and Coach. The more they spoke, talk about persevering through adversity, and having strength. And I started understanding what it meant. But just to, play for Coach Bowden, I mean, you got to be a lucky person, man, to get the opportunity to play for somebody like Coach Bowden, and I'm also getting a chance to coach with him. But he just taught so much. And if I, had all day, I still wouldn't tell you enough stories that he's told us and how he's changed and shaped our hearts and minds, as young men.
All right, that's beautiful. Thank you. And let me ask you this. We'll start with your favorite memory as a Florida State player.
Favorite memory.
Game, play, whatever you want, whatever pops in your head when you think of your career at Florida State.
It's a lot of them. Well, and I know Odell said that the '98 Florida game, that was huge, because that was like one of the moments, man. Just like Coach said in the '89 season, the stadium was so loud, and so I the reverse pass repeat to myself, but I'll go back to the national championship game, against Virginia Tech in the Sugar Bowl. And I just felt like the game was won before we even played the game, because you saw the confidence in the coaches, the players. We had confidence, and it's special to me, Rob, because before the game, Peter Ward said he's going to score three touchdowns, and I said if you score three, I'm getting two. And then that game he scored 3 touchdowns and I got 2. So it was amazing. It was amazing because you felt the electricity from our fans. When we're at the hotel, in front of the hotel, you're getting off the bus, at the stadium, So it was just, wow, man, we got to do it for our fans. We've been so close so many times. Let's get the job done. Our coaches, man, they put so much on us in the off season and during the season. So we knew, we felt like we were gonna win the game, but it was special because, the fans, just scoring those 3 touchdowns and myself scoring 2, man, it was just, words can't describe it.
Well, the thought occurred to me while you're answering. You got boosters and season ticket holders and Florida State fans watching this, and you wonder if you make a difference. You wonder why we want our fans in the stadium. You wonder why we need your support. Both guys talked about not what they did individually in the game, but what it was like to play in the game. What it was like for the fans to be there. It really is that kind of environment that makes people play better. People wonder, you hear the fans, they don't hear you individually calling them out, but they hear and feed off that energy. So Florida State fans, we need you. We need you to be part of our seasons in the future so that both these guys can have good memories as coaches as well. Ron, tell me if this is wrong. I was told this is true, but people tell me a lot of stuff. But in the national championship game, I understand that the coaches had broken Virginia Tech down to the point that there was as close as you can get to an automatic touchdown, that if the ball went on a certain hash mark under certain situations, they always ran the same defense, and that you were going to be wide open. And sure enough, one of your touchdowns came off that exact situation. And I will tell you that Chris Wakey told me it was one of the hardest passes he ever threw because he knew you were going to be wide open. He knew it should be a touchdown. And the hardest thing to do is throw to a wide open guy. But any truth to that there was the coaches did a pretty darn good job in that game as well.
See, you're spot on, Rob. And that's one of the reasons why I knew I was going to get 2 touchdowns, because I already knew I had one in the bag already. So I knew all I needed to score was 1. I could match what I told Peter Ward. But yeah, it was, it was spot on with. We knew that when we motioned, I think it was Travis Minor out of the backfield. They would take the corner and bump out with him. The safety be matched inside. Actually a safety he's been playing that like the linebacker, that he'd be matched inside, but he plays zone coverage. He wouldn't match the receiver that's inside. And he just let me run right past him. It was a wide open touchdown. So that was the easiest touchdown I've had in my life. So Coach Bowden and Coach Rick, they drew it, they schemed it up and said, hey man, this is a touchdown right here. We just got to get in the red zone. Got in the red zone and we ran it, man. And 6 points later, we called on Johnny Kowski.
Calling on Janikowski's because we just scored. Occurred to me while I'm talking to you, both you guys, one of the similarities I hear about Coach Norvell in our program now, as it was under Coach Bowden, is, Coach Bowden was very much into letting his assistant coaches coach. And my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the early read on Coach Norvell is that your meetings are very interactive. He's extremely in tune with allowing input from his assistant coaches and him providing input into position coaching as well. So it's a pretty open atmosphere. Is that correct?
Yes, and Coach Norvell, he does a good job. Just knowing him since January, he does a good job. He lets you coach your players and also discipline your players. And he has major input, but he'll tell you that's why I hired you, because I hired great people. He said, I want my players to be great people. And to me, that makes you feel great as a coach when you're not micromanaged and you could go out and coach your guys and discipline them the way they're supposed to be. And he's given each coach ownership of their segment. But then again, he's the head coach. But he give you ownership as a coach, and so you can push your guys the way you want to in the classroom. That's important as growing as young men and on that football field. To me, as a longtime assistant coach, to me, that's very important. Trust, that's very important.
And you've been in quite a few meeting rooms, worn Miami colors in them. You've worn, we went through the list earlier, South Florida and various other things. So you've got a pretty varied background already, Ron. And I understand that the relationship with you and Coach Dillingham and Coach Norvell in terms of putting this offense together is sort of been an easy mix, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yes, sir. Well, it all starts with, Odell said it starts with people. Who are you as a person? Who are you as a coach? And there are no egos, in that room. We're meeting as a staff. There aren't any egos. Coach Norvell. For instance, Rob. Coach Norvell, he played receiver and coach receiver.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be really easy for him.
Wondered about that.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, So it's he's gonna be in the receiver room all the time, the meetings all the time, but he's not. He makes an appearance. He knows, hey, I hired you for a reason. I know you can teach. I know you can coach. I'm gonna let you do your job. So he may pop in and out every now and then, but that's at every position. But himself and Coach Dillingham, they've done a good job of teaching the coaches, the offense and the scheme and stuff like that. So now they trust that we can go in there and teach it to our players. So that's really pleasing when as a coach, man, that the head guy, trusts you and the staff to go in. You hadn't worked together before, but you can go in and get the job done, and you can win over your guys by showing them you care about them, off the field, and knowing they'll play hard for you on the field, So it's been really good.
Sorry.
Yes, sir. No,
we hope you guys are going to get to work with them hands-on here pretty soon. We obviously don't know what the future holds in terms of the COVID pandemic and what's going on, but the governor's mentioned some things the last couple of days. So let's hope things open up and you get those players up under your wing, get them out on that practice field. I know you're both dying to. But thanks so much for this time. For you two guys, as busy as you are with all the Zoom chats and following your players and working as much as you are, to have these two legends come on with our fans means a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Rob.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. That's been the Football Fix. It's brought to you by the FSU Bookstore. That's where you want to go right now to get your Seminole merchandise online at shopfsu.com. For Odell Haggins and Ron Dugans and Florida State, we got to say go Noles. Get your tickets now for the 2020 season, and let's hope we get started here pretty soon.
Go Noles.
Go Noles, baby.
Thanks, everyone.